Hey everybody, I'm going to do a quick little video here. People have been asking me questions about these protesters and their blockades and why they weren't hauled away and charged with trespassing and all the rest of the good stuff. So I'm going to try and enlighten you a little bit on some things about the railroad. Okay, so, whoops. You see over here, there's a fence post just by that sea container, and then over here is that little cedar fence, I guess, and of course you have a little stand of trees there and there. So anyway, so in between those two fence lines or fence posts, that's the right of way for the railroad. Now, some railroads differ, some are more, some are less than others, but for CP, the right of way is 50 feet in either direction from the center of that track. That's the right of way. Now, give or take, obviously, it's not going to be a perfect 50 feet all the way along. So what protesters do is they don't set up their barricades or blockades down there or even there. They set them up here. And this is a public crossing. As you can see, we can get us back to where we should be. Here. So this is a public crossing. This is a public street, even though it dead ends at an abandoned house. Anyway, so if you set up your little barricades there and there on either side of this crossing, that's not considered trespassing because it's used by the public. And of course, they left room and so that vehicles could drive across the crossing, and those people were happy. But that's why they weren't charged with trespassing. They just hauled away. And as long as they're not doing things like ripping rails up or, you know, sacrificing whatever, they basically just left them alone for like the last 2.5 weeks. But today they started clearing them out, and apparently in one spot at somewhere they decided to light a bunch of tires on fire. So they're still there, last I heard. You would think they would just go in and just rip them out of there and then deal with the tire fire, because that's going to be nasty. Anyway, so yeah, the railroad owns 50 feet from the center of those tracks in either direction. Now, as you can see, just here on the left, that's where the second main line ran through at one time. So obviously the center to that tree line fence would have been obviously less than 50 feet. It might have been 30, 35. So that's where the variations come in. And as we pan around, you can see it's pretty uniform all the way down there. Something else I want to touch on too is this is considered a private crossing, and that's because it's only protected by crossbucks and a stop sign. But because they are protected by crossbucks and a stop sign, trains blow here. Further down the line, there are what we call farmer crossings. Those aren't protected by anything except a sign that says use at your own risk, private crossing. Now if you look further down that way, you have lights and gates. That's considered a public crossing because it's protected by mechanical and automated devices. So but yeah, so that's why they weren't charged with trespassing right off the hop and pulled out of there, is because technically they weren't trespassing when they were at a crossing. Now if I go, or if they would have been, you know, just right down in here, that's trespassing. That's railroad property. It's a gray area that they just kind of left alone. I guess they could have done something, but they decided not to. They just wanted to try and peacefully resolve it, and that didn't really work that well. Anyway, there's the abandoned house this public road ends at. Be a really cool place to own. And then you can see the remains of the second main line through here. But anyway, it's getting long. So I just wanted to mention that because people have been saying, why weren't they just charged with trespassing right away, ticketed and hauled off? And that's why, because technically they weren't trespassing. They were at a public crossing. All right, thanks.